All right, thanks for joining us on Fly Tying Tuesday. Spinning up another classic for y'all. This is the Prince Nymph, developed, I think back in maybe the early 30s. So it's been around for almost an entire century now. It's proven itself to be something you never leave home without. One of the best searching patterns of all time. This thing can imitate anything from a variety of stoneflies and bigger sizes to mayflies and caddis and smaller sizes as you get up to 14 through 18. So really versatile pattern, really heavy, gets down, stays down where you want it. What we have on the vise today is a TMCO 5262. This is a size 16, just happens to be what we're filling some orders with today. You can use a 5263, 3761. There's a few different hooks you can use, just what I usually fall back to. We have a small silver tungsten bead on the front, a little more weight, and then some lead-free wire. With this size, we've got a 0.015, but if you look on our site, on this fly, you'll see the different lead wire sizes to use based on the size hook you're tying this in. Thread we're going to be using today, UTC 70 black, nice and flat. So we'll go ahead and tie this on right behind the wire. A few wraps. And we'll build up a very small taper here. And we'll take this to the back, right to that barb point. Next thing we're doing is tying our tails. It's going to be goose bites today in brown. We'll tie them in one at a time just so you can see the process before you're comfortable enough to tie two at a time. We want these to be about half the length of the shank of the hook. I like them a little shorter than longer. We're going to give our bobbin a nice little counterclockwise spin here to tighten it so we can capture this well. Now we're going to put it right on the side. We're going to capture it with about 3 wraps. Take a look at our length. A little bit longer than I like it. There we go. And we want a slight upward angle on these tails. So you can just kind of hold that in place as you take it back. All right, now we're going to bring it back forward, tying our next tail. Give another little counterclockwise spin to continue to tighten that thread up. I like to use a rotary vise and I like to take advantage of it, so we're going to tilt this over so we're tying this in on its side a little bit. Same thing here. Capture it with about three wraps. This stuff will slide, these buyouts will slide on you some, so expect that when you tie it in. Look at the length of these two. Line them up so they're perfectly even. That looks good. And we'll take this all the way back. And we'll snip these buyouts off close. Whoop. All right, next thing we're going to do here is we're going to tie in our ribbing material, which is going to be some UTC small gold wire. We're going to tie this in on the near side, and we'll just capture this with a loose wrap, and then we will slide it back so that that wire lines up right against the base of the lead-free wire we use as the underbody. So I'll get a few wraps and I'm going to slide this back so it's right even with that wire. And we're going to take it all the way back to our barb point. All right, next thing we're going to do here is we're going to tie in some peacock eye sticks, some hurl from it. No, don't use the cheap strung peacock curl. I say it all the time, but this stuff is way better quality. As we're going up and down in size, it just affects where we're pulling this from. So on a 16, we're getting pretty close to the eye up here. We're always going to be using, 4 or 5 strands. If we were tying, something like a 8, 10, we'll be using some of the fluffier strands at the bottom to build up a bigger body. So I'm gonna grab 5 of these, snip them off close at the bottom, and then we're gonna line up the tips, because the way that we're gonna tie this is actually with the tips first, which is kind of unusual. You usually tie in the base. So we're gonna line these up so they're close to even, and then we'll just snip them even. We'll tie these in right on top so they line up with that lead-free wire. And we'll take it all the way to the front, building up a slight taper here, not much. The way we tied in that peacock curl is gonna help with the taper. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna wrap this peacock curl. We're just gonna go straight over the top. And then our first 2 wraps are gonna be at a 45-degree angle. That's gonna help with our taper. So first one's diagonal, second one's diagonal. Third one, we're going straight up, straight down. And then each one after that's gonna be vertical, and it's just gonna be right on top of the other one. All the way to the bead. Capture that. I like to capture my peacock curl with 2 wraps behind it. One in front, and then another one behind it. You can either rip these off at this point or cut them off close. So we've got a nice fluffy body here. Don't worry, it's gonna get a little smaller when we wrap this ribbing material. Really important here, we are gonna counter wrap this wire. So we are gonna bring it the opposite direction that we wrap that peacock curl. And the reason we do that is that it's gonna really secure that peacock material so it can't come unwound. So we're just gonna get nice even wraps here. And we're gonna take it all the way to the front. And we'll capture it. And then we'll just helicopter this wire off. All right, so now we're going to tie in our collar. And to do that, we're just gonna use some brown hackle. On a Prince this small, we're gonna go real small with our hackle here. We want it to pretty much line up with the base of the hook point. So give you guys an example of what we're looking at. This guy right here will be plenty big. So we're gonna cut off the base, and then we're gonna strip off just a small section here so we have a tie-in point. Shiny side, always facing us. Capture with a couple wraps and then bring the rest of that stem back towards you. And then we're gonna wrap back toward the front. And we're only gonna need a couple wraps here on this small of a size. 2 or 3 is gonna be plenty. There's 2 wraps, capture it. And we'll cut this off close. Now the next thing we're gonna do here is we wanna sweep this hackle back some so that it's pointing towards that hook point. So a couple different ways to do this. Some people like to pinch it with their finger. I like to just grab it on the sides, pull it back. And now you can see that's Get a nice kind of 45-degree angle towards that hook point. Now, I like to cut off some of this hackle at the top, right on top of the body, just to get a smooth base for our horns that we're about to tie in. You don't have to do it, a lot of people don't. Just a preference thing. So for our horns here, we're gonna be using some white goose biots, same as what we use for the tail, just in white. And we'll tie in one at a time just so you can see it. What we're going to do here is we are going to tie these basically across the body, so diagonally, like an X over each other. And we want these to, the tip of this to go right to the base of the tail. And you can see how that's going across the body. Other one will do the same thing, just going in the opposite direction, across the body. And as I'm doing this, you can see that I'm holding this down with my thumb, and that's going to prevent these horns from flaring up on you. We want these things laying flat. So they're crossed across each other. That's what we're looking for. Just a couple wraps of thread. Now this next thing is a step a lot of people don't do. I like to do it for durability. I found that this really helps them hold up more. So I'm going to pull this thread tight, keep tension on it, and I'm going to wrap the base of that biot over itself and secure it with 2 wraps. Then I'm going to come in and trim that as close as I can. Do the same thing with the other one. Fold it right over. There we go. Couple of wraps. Come in and trim it close. Now I'm going to keep holding these down as I make a few wraps just to cover up some of this work. We don't want to get a really bulky head here. And then we'll whip finish. Making sure you don't capture any of those hackle fibers as you do. Pull it tight. Pull that whip finish back till you feel it pop into place. And we'll come in and trim this off close. If you trapped any fibers, just snip them off. Last thing we're going to do here is we're just going to apply a very thin layer of Solarez UV Thin Hard on this thread head. This is just, once again, another durability thing. Keep it sparse here. We don't want much, just enough to really make sure everything stays locked in and secured. And we'll just work this all the way around the head. You got any on the bead, you can just kind of clean it up a little bit. Hit it with our laser. All the way around. And that's all there is to it. That's a Prince Nymph. Tie these guys up in a variety of sizes. You can mess with the color schemes as well with some different colored dyed peacock curl, purple. You've probably seen Psycho Prince Nymphs that use purple and orange and red and different colors. Super effective searcher patterns. Let us know what you think. Thanks for watching today.